I did not read that screen I just clicked off of. They always got like all these statements and stuff. I'm like, okay. I probably should have read that. But anyway, I think I might start doing like these probably like late night lives. This is like the best time to do them, especially when the kids are asleep. This is my daughter loves this. The little one, man, me getting up going live, like she basically hangs out with me until she goes to sleep, and she loves just hearing me talk. I can talk to her for hours. But anyway, I guess what I'm gonna have to start doing is kind of coming up with like subjects, I guess. So I don't know. I got a few of them, but I guess I haven't figured out like a show or anything. I'm not like really fancy. I got like less than 100 subscribers. I'm sitting at 65. So I'm really grateful that I am sitting at 65 because, like I said before, man, them videos on demand, they rough. Anyway, so something that I wanted to kind of talk about before I put the kids all the way down, because right now I'm holding my little one, putting her to sleep. It takes a while to put her to sleep. A while. Like my son, it don't take nothing. Like, yo, just feed him, after he takes his bath and everything, fresh clothes, just you put him down and that's it. It's so easy. I can literally put him down on the bed and just say, hey, go to sleep. And he'll be like, even if he don't feel like it, he just go. My daughter, totally different story. Like some nights she want tea. Some nights she want hot chocolate. Some nights she just don't feel like going to sleep. Like tonight was one of those nights where I spent a lot of time talking to her. Like I even tried to like make a video real quick, and I was contemplating not going live. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just throw up a video. But I don't know. I think I kind of like live, because videos they can be a little rough, especially when you have to go through. You got to edit them, and then with the lives, like people come through on the chat. It's pretty cool. They come and they go. I'm small time. Haven't really gotten the hang of this yet, but I'm trying. I'm going. Well, anyway, something that I wanted to talk about. For the longest time, I was wondering why the Queen of England's husband never became a king, right? Because anytime a king marries a queen, excuse me, marries any woman, she could be fresh out the dumpster, like, and he'll be like, yeah, that's my wife, and bam, now she's queen, right? Um, but that didn't happen. I thought the other way around would be, since the queen got married. Do you like watermelon? Absolutely. Money, money, money. I like your name too. Money, money, money. 4 times. Okay. Do you like banana? Do you like chicken wings? Who doesn't? But anyway. Oh, you know what it is? I don't know if money is talking about like these food videos that I be putting up. Sometimes I'll just be bored. So I'm like, yeah, I'm about to get the camera, just film me cooking real quick. Hopefully, I don't know, he might be a troll. Hopefully you're not a troll, but that'd be mean if you was a troll. I'm still small time. But anyway, so the Queen of England, right? She got married. And then she reigned for like 70 years, right? And her husband never became king, which that was crazy to me. That her husband never became king. And here in the United States, we still have a lot of I want to say English influence because the whole getting our independence from England and all that stuff. I'll be honest with you, I don't even feel like we got our independence from England. I still feel like we under them. Like, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but this country ain't doing great. And I feel like we're always attached. We're always hearing something about the royal family. But anyway, so basically she got married and he never became king. So then when I looked it up on his significance or whatever, I learned that he was supposed to be in line to be a successor to be the next king of Greece. So he had to denounce his name and his royal lineage and all that in order to become a royal in Britain. So that just kind of made me think because, when you think of like a kingdom, first thing that come in your mind is king. But this was a kingdom that didn't have a king. And it didn't have a king for 70 years, over 70 years, right? So as that influences the rest of the world and here in Western culture, um, over here, women are running a lot of things in the United States. Um, like feminist culture, women culture is it's a big deal over here. I feel like a lot of that comes from like the crown, the British crown. I feel like we're still being influenced by the Brits, right? I don't think that we're detached at all. I don't think that we're independent. So, with that being said, going back to like Prince Philip or whatever, it was like crazy because it was like his whole life, he's never been in charge. Like, that's never been his position. And so, how it relates to over here, it's a lot of men like this red pill media is crazy. Like I know there's a lot of they call them like incels or whatever. There are a lot of code names. I'm still catching up to it. But there are a lot of these groups of guys that are like, it's like an anti-marriage, be mean to women kind of rhetoric, judge women, say things that we were taught not to say to women, men are in charge, a lot of misogynistic rhetoric. And it makes sense because when you have an influence as big as the British Royal Crown, and I mean, they're a huge deal all around the world, it's like the queen is kinging the king for 70 years. And he's a prince. No matter how old he is, no matter how many kids he has, he's still just a prince. And I don't know if what's the word? Well, how would I put it? I don't know what's more humiliating: being treated like a like I don't know if it feminized him, but let's just talk about like men over here in Western culture, right? They talk a lot about how, I heard something about how Cam Newton was saying that women were not attractive, like other than, for, I don't know, benefits. I'm just going to just call it benefits. Intimacy. If it wasn't for intimacy, men would not be attracted to women. And that's how far removed like the relationship between men and women have become, which is kind of, in my mind, is kind of bizarre. It might not be new, but hear me out. I'm going somewhere with this because I'm attaching the two. Going back to the prince, he had a kingdom in Greece. He was Prince of Greece. Came over to Britain, married the soon-to-be queen, the woman slot to be queen of UK. The United Kingdom, Britain, whatever. So he never becomes king. With that being said, it's like I used to have a problem with that because I was like, that's a man, he's supposed to be a king, right? But this is something that I didn't keep in mind, was the fact that his kingdom had fallen. So how can a woman be queen over a kingdom that does not exist? And I think I read somewhere that the monarchy of Greece was finally dissolved. I want to say in 1973, if my memory serves me correctly. I think they're considered what's called an oligarchy, where there's like a group of people who govern. But and not to get too specifics into their government, because I don't want to get away from the point that I'm trying to make, which is there's no way the queen could have had a king because he was always a prince. How does that relate to like Western culture? And what point I'm trying to make here is that we have a country full of prince like men over here. So when I say prince like men, you oftentimes hear women complain about how men want them to cook and clean, but at the same time, men don't have no house to cook and clean in. So it's like men are constantly, this is why I kind of get on red pill a little bit. They constantly criticize the women and they're always giving relationship advice, but they don't have any substance. So it's like, you know, they're quick to say, women are 304s or women are always playing games or things like that. They're quick to go there. But, or like this was a fun word that I learned from the whole movement was that women are hypergamous, right? And it's like, I feel like to say that women are hypergamous, which is to say they want a whole bunch of stuff for nothing. They want a whole bunch of something for nothing. I think that really downplays the reality of the situation, because when a woman says she wants a man with a house, a car, some of them, they go as far as to say 6-figure income, they want the man to be tall. All these things make sense because it requires, well, for that, it suggests that that man will be able to provide, right? So like having a car provides transportation. Having a house provides shelter. 6-figure income, a lot of them say that. Well, provision, right? So they're just thinking about like basic needs, and if they want to go above and beyond, like let's say if they want to travel, go on trips, things like that, they say they want those things. Who doesn't want those things? Okay, on the flip side, in like red pill media or whatever, they'll be like, none of these women deserve this. Like they're asking for something that they're not worthy of. And the more that I think about it, I'm like, first of all, I think about the fact that a lot of people on the internet who are giving relationship advice don't really have a relationship to speak for. They might have like boyfriends, girlfriends, or whatever, but like some of them even give marriage advice, which I think is dangerous. I think a person that's single, especially a person who's never married, to talk about marriage, I think that's crazy. They've never been there. And so, I don't know, that's one of the reasons why I felt the need to start this channel too, because there are so many things that are unique about me personally that I feel like a lot of people are representing topics that represent me, and I don't relate to them at all, which that's a whole other thing. I could talk all day about that. But anyway, back to this whole, just saying what women are versus, this whole red pill rhetoric. Women, it makes sense what they're thinking. It makes sense what they're saying, 100%. And I do understand how the red pill talks about, a lot of these women are undeserving of the things that they're looking for. I get that. That makes sense to me. But at the same time, these women didn't just come up with this stuff just out of the blue. Like they frame it in such a way to be like, oh, women want you to do this, and it's like women are so confusing, or women don't respect men, or whatever. And in my opinion, I don't see that. And I could be biased because I'm a woman. I could be like, oh, what's wrong with a woman saying they want a man to make X amount of dollars and all this other stuff? Because, I mean, I don't know. Now, for me, before I got married, I wasn't thinking, oh, my husband's name is Josh. And I wasn't like, hey, Josh, you need to be doing this, that. I didn't have like a whole checklist. But at the time, I've dated enough to know what I would not tolerate too. I've gotten to know myself to where I knew what wouldn't work for me long term. And even before I was dating, I have to say this, I have to really give credit to my stepdad. Like he was very instrumental in my upbringing in a way that when I was getting attention from guys, I wasn't trying to figure it out. I think that's another thing to consider. I'm jumping so many places, but bear with me. I'm trying to get somewhere. So, what I'm getting at is going back to this whole nation of princes, right? Prince Philip could not have his wife have his name because he had no house. And this has been racking my brain ever since I was a little girl. My family has always talked about the royal family. I don't know why my family was so, maybe they were so obsessed with them because they had really deep ties with the church, and the church is really heavily tied up with the monarchy because the monarchy is pretty much, if you ask me, is like one of the many hands of the Vatican and so on and so forth. But I was like, for the longest time, I was like, how come, in the Bible, because we talk in church, there's this structure, like you count all the way from Adam down. We didn't count from Eve down. So why are we always talking about the queen? Like, why are we never talking about her husband? Even like when we talk about Prince Philip, it just sounds gross. It's like some people don't even put Prince in front of it. They just say Philip because it was like they treated him like a stepdad. Like he was like a sugar daddy. And that was crazy to me because I was like, isn't the crown supposed to be like royalty? Isn't it supposed to be like the highest standard? And then a lot of the influences that we had here in the United States, looking at the queen, she's gone through, okay, her husband, she never had to submit to him. Then she had her son, who she was raising. When he got of age to rule, even when he got married twice, I thought, okay, some people they were blown away by the fact that the first time he married Princess Diana, whatever, and everybody for sure was like, hey, I mean, isn't he king? Now, do we have a king of England? Like, I'm all the way here in the United States. Maybe because I was raised by a bunch of uppity people. They were like, I just remember at tea time, listen to me, at tea time, talking to my mom, listening to her friends and stuff, and they were always talking about well, I think we're gonna have a king of England. We might have a king in our lifetime, and it's like, no, he didn't become king either, right? So then fast forward, it's like England is being ran by a woman. England is a superpower and it's being ran by a woman. So the rest of the world is looking at that. And a lot of the world is patterning their influence after that. And it all stemmed from the fact that what house could marry a Windsor girl? It's just like here in the United States, a lot of the women who are, let's throw this word out again, hypergamous, right? Man got to have equal or greater than what I come to the table with, right? Mathematically, that makes sense. Like, if I worked my whole life to gain all these accolades and all these achievements and accomplishments, why would I then turn it over to somebody who is not my equal? Which that is a very fair and rational question. It's not an insult either. And so I thought about that. Like tonight, for some reason, it just clicked. It was like, that makes sense. He has to always be a prince. The reason why Prince Philip died a prince, he was like 90 something years old, nearly 100. He had to die a prince because he had no house. He had no kingdom to put his wife in. And in my opinion, I think that's why the United States is the best country in the world. Hands down. Okay, I am not well traveled. I'm going to put that out there. I've only been to a handful of places outside of this country. And as far as really living and being around people that's not on the, main continent, 48 states. I'll be honest with you, the most experience I've had outside of here is Alaska. I'll be honest with you, and that was short, right? And that's still the United States, granted. But this is why I'm using this example, and I'm paralleling a lot of parts, or connecting a lot of parts. In the United States, a man can be born poor. I mean, in complete destitute, poor, broke, uneducated. He can be born in any condition and still have the potential to be a multimillionaire or even a billionaire, regardless of his race or his background, even his sexual orientation. Some countries, you can't even, it's illegal to be gay. You will be jailed on sight in some countries, or some even executed. In the United States, you can be what's called a furry, where you can dress up like an animal and you can identify as an animal, and you can live a free life in this country. This is, in my opinion, the freest country in the world. Does it have its hangups? Yeah. Does it have its setups? Yeah. Setbacks? Yeah. But that's the beauty of this country, is that you can, who you were does not define who you're going to be. Like, it's not like a caste system, like where they say, okay, you were born into this family, so you're this, or your parents were that, so you have to be this, right? And that's the thing that I really love about this country. Prince Phillip, no matter what he did, he would never be king. In the United States, the men here, no matter what their circumstances is, they can be king. Now, I just took a monarch and I just took an American, and this is where I'm going to go with that. In America, you can do whatever you want to do, nearly shamelessly. You can do whatever you want to do, right? So, here's the deal. We all know the rules in America. We know right from wrong. We know what's good and bad in America. But then we can still choose to do what we want to do, right? Okay, so we've got, I don't want to say naturalized rights. I don't want to get technical, but you just have your rights to your freedoms and your liberties, right? Cool. Now, which means that other people, they can have opinions of what you're doing, but you can decide whether or not that person has a right to impose on your opinion or not. You just have to make a decision. Here's another really hot topic. Should a guy be a stepdad? In my opinion, the answer is no, which is hypocritical, because I started this video talking about how my stepdad, I give him credit to a lot of who I am today, right? But if you were given the choice to be a step parent, ideally you wouldn't want to be in that situation. Ideally, the single parent wouldn't want to be in that situation. But for a lot of people, that's the cards dealt, right? So just because a person has a certain opinion doesn't mean that you have to abide by that opinion. So you can make changes. You can make whatever decision that you want to make. Just like how you can reap the rewards of making good decisions, you can suffer the consequences of making bad decisions, right? And that's the thing with the country. Now, how does this relate to being royalty in America? Royalty is defined by levels of sovereignty and by who your name is or what your name is. So each man has a name, and each name has a meaning. That meaning is attached to assets and liabilities, and more importantly, actions, right? So when you talk about a man in the United States, he's whatever he chooses to be, regardless of the reason that he is, because a lot of times in the United States, you have people complaining about where they are in life, and then they continue to be where they're at in life, right? When you can make choices, you can do what you got to do to fix your situation, right? You don't have to stay in a situation. It again, it's not like other places where it's like, this is your class, this is where you are. The United States ain't like that. I'm sure there are other countries in the world that are not like that too, but I'm only talking about where I live, right? So if you take somebody like Prince Phillip, he was in a place where whatever happened in that country, that's what he was attached to. And he was attached by his wealth and by his power, whatever, which was only limited to being the spouse of the queen at the time, right? And he died with that name on him. Um, then you got his children or whatever. They're gonna go on. Well, his son, he's a king. His grandson most likely will be. Well, yeah, he'll be a king. If the monarchy still exists. Here in the United States, you can have a man who's in an apartment, and as long as his name is on that apartment as head of household, he's the king of that house, that apartment, that one unit. He may not own the building, but he has rights. You are within his domain. He rules within that domain. Just like a man in a mansion, he may have more wealth and he might have more access, but the two of them still have their own domains within what's called their station. They're both within their station. So if the man who lives in a mansion walks into the man's apartment, who's the head of that apartment, whatever that man in that apartment decides, that man from that mansion has to respect the authority of that man. For example, let's say man A, apartment man. Man A is talking to man B. Man B, he's the mansion man. Man A tells man B, "Hey, you being too loud when you talking in here. I need you to lower your voice." Man B has a choice now. Either he is going to go back home to his mansion, or he's going to suffer the consequences that man A decide, which is, if you can't respect my space, you can leave. So that's the thing about being here in the United States, and that's the thing about being royalty here, is that you don't have to be rich. There's a reason why people like swim over rivers. They get smuggled in at any cost. Like a lot of times Americans, we don't realize how good we got it, because we can literally do anything we want to do in this country. Yeah, there are some boundaries or whatever, but if you go to another country and you hear all the time how certain people, if they have certain resources, they can just do whatever they want to do. I remember I heard someone talking about, there was an influencer who was talking about in Mexico, like their judicial system is you're guilty until proven innocent. In the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty. That in and of itself is paramount. That's a big deal, that there are people in other countries who they don't have any rights. Like at any moment, anybody can decide what your fate is, especially based off of your socioeconomic class. That is not the case here. Like, you can make decisions based off of decisions that you want to make. And that's unique here. And I mean, that's more rights than, again, if you say the king, I just called him a king, the prince of the 90-something-year-old, I think he was 99, prince. Could you imagine being in a royal stature and never being able to progress, being trapped in this role that will forever be your role until you're deceased. You will never progress past this point. Your children will supersede you. Your wife will forever rule over you. She will be celebrated as the power of the monarch. And you will always be second place. And especially as a man, to always be second place sounds like happy wife, happy life to me. This is why I be thinking that our influence here in the United States is pretty much mirroring the influences in Britain. Again, even though we got our independence, there's still some kind of weird tie over here. So, and I don't know, maybe I'll research it more. But that's the issue here. Because going back to like men here, let's go back to like the man in the apartment versus the man in the mansion. So you got, even though these two have different lots in life, here in the United States, these men still have their rights. They still have their humanity, right? Okay, this is where it gets sticky. When it comes to civil law, here in this country, you can make whatever decision you want to make. Again, you can make any decision you want to make. Okay. This is why I'm real big on legal marriage. I've been hearing a lot about people with common law marriage. I've been hearing a lot about people with spiritual marriages. And for me, I just thought that was TV. But now that I'm in this generation, now that I'm one of the adults here, I see this is very common, especially in the Black community. There was a statistic about 8 out of 10 Black children these days are born out of wedlock. And to me, that was devastating. And of course, like, I grew up more sheltered. I was born within wedlock. But at the same time, my dad, he's deceased. So my stepdad stepped up, right? So in a way, I can kind of see where everybody's coming. No, I can't. I was about to lie to relate. I can't see it. I can't see it. I was going to say I can kind of see where people are coming from when they have like a step parent, when they're growing up in like a non-traditional or blended household. But I can't. Because one thing about my stepdad was, it was just me, my mom, and my sister. And then later on, my half brothers came into the picture, but they weren't really in it. Most people, when they think of a step parent, it's like, my mom didn't work out, my dad didn't work out, and they're still here. Like, I don't think that if my father were still alive, that I would have had a stepdad. I just can't imagine a world where my biological father would just be alive and some guy who is raising me. I don't know. And I know that's kind of like uncommon. I know that's like, for most people, it's kind of common. Parents split up. Dad's got a wife over here now. Mom's got a husband over there. Or even some days, they just completely remix it. And it'd be like, dad's got a husband and mom got a wife. It's the whole thing. Okay. Now, going back to this house thing. Houses are defined by the heads of the house. Heads of the house, by default, are men. Going back to like the Prince of The Prince of Wales. No, not Wales. Was he the Prince of Wales? No, he wasn't. Prince Charles was the Prince of Wales. Anyway, the wife's husband, who was the Prince Phillip. Going back to him, right? He was in the House of Windsor. His father-in-law, I just realized this is kind of crazy. His father-in-law carried on to his sons and now his grandsons, right? They're Windsors. whatever Philip's name was, I think he denounced it in like the 1940s. He had to. Well, he was born in the 1940s, but or something like that. He had to denounce his name in order, and he had to become a part of. He had to become a Brit. He had to pretty much say, "Hey, I'm no longer defining as myself. I'm no longer defining as Greek," and that's crazy. That's crazy to me because when a for me it's just hard. It's just difficult for me to process because it's like as a man, right? Could you imagine marrying a woman and taking her dad's name? Like you get with this chick, you court this chick, and you want to be with her, but she says you're taking my name. My kids are taking my name. Our grandsons will take my name. And I don't think that we really give enough attention to the fact that this is something that was going on for 70 years. A world superpower was pretty much championing a woman pretty much being the head of household in a way. So there's no wonder that we live in an age where women run everything. Okay, men, they actually, lay down on concrete, they do the hard work, they do the life-threatening work, the body-crushing work, they take all the risks. But women are really, what is the word? I want to say, not killing it, but they are they're in power. Like women have a lot of power right now, whether you would like to acknowledge it or not. Like women have high offices. Women are very wealthy. They're very educated. Here in the United States, women are doing great things. Statistically showing overall data, of course, men are outdoing women on that scale. But more often than not, women are really, they're more than self-sufficient. They're outgoing. They're overachievers. And I understand their frustration. I get it. There was a time when, I was a career woman and I was faced with this dilemma of, okay, my dad's name, my maiden name, it meant a lot to me. So even though my dad passed away, my grandpa, his dad, always made me feel really special for my maiden name, right? And he was a preacher in a big church and all this other stuff. So he had a lot of influence. One of those high degree Freemasons and all that good stuff. And because of all of his success, I felt like if anybody would have talked to me, they've got to be as impressive as he is or more. Because my father, by being deceased, was not here to help me understand how big of a deal I was, how special I was, how important my name was, right? But here was the problem, and this is something that I've been confronted with since I've had my own children. Where is our house? Where is, and my maiden name is Haley, like where is the Haley house? Like the House of Windsor, it's gonna take a lot for that house to not exist. And this might be arrogant for me to say, but I can see that house. I don't even know. I probably shouldn't even say that. I was going to say this. The House of Windsor will probably be until the end of time. Sounds bizarre to say, especially because this is on the internet forever. The reason why I'm saying this is because it has a long history, and when the Queen of England was in line to become queen, they found a way to ensure that the Windsor name still exists, even if it came through a woman. And then it makes me wonder, here in the United States, I wonder if that's what the women are doing. Like, they're, especially like the single mother. I know there are a lot of single mothers who give their child their own name, right? And it's like, I've even heard women say they give that child that name because, as a single mom, they're not married. So why give the man who's not married the honor of having his name placed on this child, especially if he has no intentions on taking care of the child, right? So the funny thing is, with Windsor, this kingdom could have been just handed over. Like, just imagine that, like, as a man, you worked hard, you built a whole kingdom, and you passed it down from generation to generation. And so many bloodlines down, you have no sons to pass it to from there. And even worse, your daughter marries outside of the nation. He's not even, like, Prince Phillip was not even British. He was Greek. So, well, he had ties with the Greek monarchy or whatever, but the point is, he's not one of them. And it's like, you marry into this lineage. Well, your daughter married into this lineage that ain't got nothing to do with you, nothing to do with what you built. So all that time, all those generations, all those wars, all of the politics, everything, and it just gets handed over to somebody who ain't got nothing to do with you. So I can get that. Here in the United States, we're not under a monarchy, right? So it's kind of funny because I'm in this weird fork in the road too, right? Like, I credit the Johnson family for my upbringing because a lot of my convictions and my thoughts come from my stepdad, who was a Johnson. It would be, I don't want to use the word unjust, disingenuous. It would be disingenuous to give credit to my maiden family because I did not grow up with them. I don't know them. This is why I kind of had to slow my roll. I remember when I first started these YouTube videos, and I actually like this. I like this YouTubing thing. It's pretty cool because there was a time not too long ago. I mean, I started doing this in February. What is this, May? So I've been at this about 90 days, right? A little less than 90 days, 3 months. And there was a time when I was like, why are people not marrying before they carry? Why do women have problems with submission? Why aren't men working before they go see twerking? Like, I used to wonder about stuff like that. And now that I look at myself, I see. Like, I get it. Like, me personally, I think I was just obedient. Like, my parents, let's fix that. My mother and my stepfather, they were they had a real tight handle on me growing up, and I just took everything that they taught me, everything they ever taught me to heart. And I've seen poor examples of upbringings, and I've seen unfortunate events happen to really cool people. And I've seen bad things happen to good people. And oftentimes I will wonder, I'd be like, man, how did they get into that situation? And I used to love picking my stepdad's brain. I used to love, just sometimes I would even go as far as to write things down just so I can be able to come to him and ask him questions later so that I wouldn't forget any question. And even saying that out loud right now, the more that I consume media, the more that I actually get out and interact with people, the more I start realizing that even though we weren't like rich or anything, I was so privileged. Like, how many kids can just sit down and just pick a man's brain and just listen to him? Like, a lot of times men are so busy being macho and things like that, or they're so busy dealing with the weight of the world or the weight of a woman or weight of many women, to where they don't really impart like wisdom and knowledge. They can't, because there's just no breathing room for men anywhere. Like, men have to run the world. Men have to be in charge. Men have to take care. That is a unrelenting force that never stops for men, right? Women, we have these demands too. But here's the thing, especially here in the United States. A woman can completely just give up. She can. In society, a woman can be vulnerable. A woman can be emotional in a public space, and society does not shame her for it. She has that freedom of expression, right? And men don't. Like, if a man's life is hard, okay, suck it up. If a woman just have a complaint about how she's been inconvenienced, somebody's gonna listen. Even if that woman has not been inconvenienced in any way, just the fact that that woman is upset, that is enough to get somebody's attention. There's a double standard, rightfully so. But going back to the fact that I could just sit there and just talk and hear from a man's perspective in a love and caring way, that was something that a lot of kids did not have, especially if we're talking about my demographic, Black kids growing up in low income areas. That gave me a leg up. Like, and I'm forever grateful, because it's kept me out of a lot of trouble. So yeah, I mean, if we're being technical, I pretty much grew up in a Johnson house. So even though I used to ask all these questions like, what's wrong with women, particularly, what's wrong with Black women, what's wrong with the Black community? It's like, what's wrong with everybody is just what the state of humanity is in, basically, including myself. The older I get, the more I'm starting to feel like the people up top, they're not up top because they're like rich and all this other stuff. They're up top because they have a structure and they maintain that structure. So, like, I'll give a perfect example. The Trump house. Like, everybody knows who the head of the Trump house is. It's Donald. Everybody knows Trump has a son who's a junior. Everybody knows that. Um, you can't just walk into a Trump house. You can't just talk to a Trump. You can't. You can't just have access. Certain people, you just can't. And I think that's the definition of royalty too. Like growing up, any guy that wanted to like go out with me or anything, they knew they had to tell my dad first. Like when they heard about EJ, oh yeah, that's her dad. Like, mm-mm. Completely different attitude adjustment because my stepdad had a reputation to where if you were going to deal with me, you had to talk to him. Same with my biological father. Like, I mean, even though my dad passed away, people would pick up on like my mannerisms and things like that, or people were so familiar with my parents to where, if I walk up, I look like my mom, but when I start talking, they're like, "Oh, Charles." It was like, yeah, right. So on the flip side, there were other kids that didn't have this. I want to say like this house code, like it was like you could just kind of treat them how you want to treat them. You can talk to them however you want to talk to them. It's like, what you gonna do? Call his mama? His mama either is absent or he don't even live with his mama. He live with his grandma. It's like he's not in a house. So because this child is not in a house, they're vulnerable. They're outside. They're not safe. So when something does go wrong with this kid doesn't have anybody. He's just out here. On the flip side, kids who come from a house, when you hear their name, if you say, "Yeah, man, I'm hanging out with this dude named Barron." Barron who? Barron Trump, huh? Versus, Barron McDowell. Okay. Is how many McDowells? You know what I mean? Baron Davis. How many Davises do you know is Baron? The first name alone is weird to pair with anything, right? So that's the thing is that I'm wondering if the United States is a country full of peasants too. Sometimes I be thinking, like, I be having some weird thoughts, especially like while I'm putting these kids to bed. I just be thinking, see, like, I think I'm gonna start going live when I'm like putting the kids to bed because like it's like I be thinking about stuff and I be like, man, I wonder if other people might think about this stuff too, right? But anyway, so that's the thing here in the United States. That's the thing that everybody loves about the United States. The fact that we're not under a monarchy, a monarchy. Um, and it's like any man can be the king of his own castle. But the problem here is that a lot of men in this country don't have a castle. When I say castle, safe haven, they don't have an apartment. They don't have a house. They don't have a car. They don't have a job. But then there's all these expectations on the women. I got something terrible to say about that too. I might as well say it. I think that's women's fault. I think that's women's fault. Like, how often do you see a chick with like a busted guy? Or like a bunch of different women going for the same guys that have nothing to offer? And I just feel like they fight over them too. Like they fight over these dudes. Maybe the guys that the chicks don't fight over are less desirable because they're like nerds or something. I will say this. It's a lot of really successful guys who are like real deep into like it's either their thing is gonna be sports or anime. Or then you can get the good old drugs and alcohol. To where that stuff just kind of consumed them to where everything they do is around that thing rather than them being of substance themselves, right? This is what I mean. Like, I remember hanging out with a guy who referenced Dragon Ball Z all the time. Like every time we were talking and hanging out, he would use the different character names. It was so bad to where I started watching a show to try to understand what he was saying. Um, and what he was saying was cool, but he would always reference this cartoon, which, some people, they'll even get mad if you call an anime a cartoon. Like, boy, I've gotten in trouble for that. I don't know, maybe they call it an anime instead of a cartoon. All due respect to all the, what do they call them? There's this party that they go to. I think it's called, no, it's not Capcom. That's a company. I don't know. See, I'm not into it. But like, I was like, yo, this dude got a cool personality. And I probably should have picked up on it because I was always playing video games with this cat. And we used to switch games. I had a Game Boy Color. He had a Game Boy Color. It was like people had the regular Game Boy and then you had the smaller console or whatever. So then that's how me and him started, talking a lot. So, but he would always reference cartoon anime characters. And that created like a social barrier for me because it was like, dang, if I don't know who some of these characters are, I don't know what he's talking about. Now, one thing I found about like douchebag guys or like the Pookies and the Ray Rays or the Chads or whatever, it doesn't take a whole lot to understand what they're talking about. Like when they're talking to you, it's like it's direct. You know what they're talking about. So I think that's the difference. And I think people get so lost in a person's achievements and success and stuff like that, that people forget about the social aspect of humanity. Like, you got to make sense when you talk. Communication is a part of being a human being. Like, people kill me when they be like, oh, I don't need nobody. Yes, you do. I don't need no friends. Like, I remember, like, I got on TikTok. TikTok is always overwhelming me. Like, geez. And all of a sudden, there was this motivational speech where Steve Harvey, of course, was talking about how strong women, they are always alone because they don't need nobody. And I'm like, what? And then, of course, the women were eating it up. More power to him. This man has figured out a way to milk the cow. He has figured out a way to make his money. It's just appealing to women's egos. Like, he has cracked the code 100%. The advice that he gives this woman, terrible. But on this one, of course, I had to comment, and of course, everybody jumped on me because it was like, being isolated, being standoffish is not healthy. Not wanting to deal with nobody because you don't deal with drama, that is trauma. You are traumatized. One way that you can tell that a woman is traumatized is if you flip it and if you say a man is doing the same thing, that's scary. If it's scary for a man to do it, it is trauma when a woman does it. It's not normal. But again, I guess everybody like to hear they're the bad bee and they're the top, so it works for him. But anyway, going back to this house thing, right? So even though I still got my dad's namesake and I was raised in a different name of a house or whatever, a lot of my ideals came from my stepdad. So the lucky thing about my biological father is the fact that, of course, I was born a girl. Haha. So when I got married, naturally, I carried on my husband's name. So it's like I have the ideals of my stepdad, but I have the name of my biological father. On record, everything that I've ever done gets credited to my father. But as far as who I am personally, I have to credit my stepdad. And this is another thing about houses. These laws are heavier than your biological relation. So, this is what I mean. A lot of people try to credit um, being biologically related to somebody. Legal and biological are two completely different things. In fact, if something were to happen legally, people are going to look at the law. They're not going to look at who your mama is, who your daddy is. They don't care. For example, if a man legally adopts a child that ain't his, the biological father is not on the hook for that kid. And that's a very serious thing because by legally adopting a child, you are basically saying that, hey, I'm going to be responsible for this kid. And the biological parent is not going to be responsible. Which brings me to another thing. Here in the United States, it's almost like this place is like the devil's playground, right? I heard a video of a woman who legally, she was married to another woman, and um, she legally adopted her wife's kid. And the wife divorced her, put her on child support, and got with the biological father. And now they're raising that child together. And the ex-wife, the one who was playing dad, is on the hook for child support. Now, I heard that on social media. I've seen it. I've seen it happen in real life. I've seen it a few times. And I don't know. I don't know why I be thinking, maybe because the LGBTQ is like an organization, but I don't know why I thought that after it's been so unsuccessful the first few times that this has happened to women, that community was working on informing people. I don't know why I thought that, but I just felt like if it's been happening so often, they should help each other out. Like this is very common. Like I remember I came out of the military, like full-time military, 2013. I got me a job 2014. It was the tail end in 2013. 2014, I actually got to see this in the works. I had a coworker who did exactly that. She didn't get married, but what she did was she convinced her girlfriend to be considered to legally adopt her kid, and they can co-parent the child or whatever. Her deal was, oh, I don't want to get married until you show me that you're serious about being a family and you adopt my kid. So the girl, the dad girl, I'm gonna just call her dad girl, I forgot their name, but the dad girl was like, okay, yeah, I want to get married, legally adopted the kid, and then the girlfriend just stalled. And then eventually the girlfriend broke up with the chick that she wanted, with the girl dad or whatever. Um, and then that chick was on the hook. So I got to see this like in real life. Like let me tell you, I'm so nosy and I'm so petty. It's so bad. I befriended this chick. I cannot remember her name, but I could see her face in my mind as clear as day. I became friends with her because I wanted to see how this was going to shake out. I've always been the type of person who would go to work early, and I'm like one of the last people to leave. And this chick like never had a ride. Like sometimes she would try with me and be like, hey, you give me a ride? Like, no. But I used to hang out with this girl all the time. I was just so curious. Like, I never knew that people were really getting their names and their finances tied up into the shenanigans, right? Because there was a time when gay was just like, hey, you're just gay, goodbye, you know. But now it's like, hey, you're gay, sign this paperwork. Like, it just sucks. But yeah, it's still happening. That happened in what, 2014 when I saw it like in real time. It's been 11 years. It's still happening. Which goes right back to in America, you have choices. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do in this country. But you got to deal with the consequences. And if you do good, you reap the reward. It always goes back to that here. So, going back to houses, a man will always be head of household. Why would a man always be head of household? Bible. Get over it. Okay, let's try to make this worldly, palatable to most, if not all people. I'll try it that way. So the only way a woman can get pregnant is if a man fertilized the egg, right? Okay, this is a fact. A man gets to pick whoever he's going to have a baby with. This is a fact. The woman, she grants access or denies access. So then you got this balance of power, right? Okay. Now, this man can choose any woman to have a child with. The woman has to wait to get chosen by a man in order to have a child. Okay? Cool. This is just basic stuff. Okay, cool. We got that. Now, that rule is there. In order for a man to be able to have a woman, he has to have a place for her to be. If he does not have a place for her to be, then the woman has two choices. Either she's going to move on because there are plenty of men out here who have a place for her to be, or she's going to stay with this man who does not have a place for her to be, and she is going to figure out a place so that she can be able to keep that man, right? And this is the dilemma here. Because now we're talking about having children with no house. That's a problem. And that's the dilemma here in the United States. Men are here and they don't have a house. Their names, even. Most men's names, they come from a single parent household. It's not just black men. There's a high, single parent rate in the white community too. We just don't talk about the white community as much on this channel because I'm black and I'm only talking about what I know. But in the country, here in the United States, the white is the majority, and oftentimes we paint them in a good light, and we look at everybody else like that. And if you're black, you're in the very bottom. It's just the culture here. Whatever, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But here's the thing. This, even like in like the white community, there's like a high divorce rate as well to consider, to factor in, right? Okay, so then now you have people who had a name, they lived in one house, but now that house is divided. So when people split up, houses are divided, which means the children are like unstable. And then if you have so many generations of this, eventually you have unstable communities, which thereby become broken communities. And then from there on, if you keep looking at it as it progresses, you have an unstable country, you have unstable people in that country, leaving a few families to pretty much capitalize off of the limitations. For example, my kids get to have both parents, and they are competing against children who only have one parent or no parent. So when dad doesn't have it, mom have it, and then when mom doesn't have it, dad have it. But for a lot of kids, if dad ain't got it, dad just ain't got it, and we got to figure it out. Same thing. If mom ain't got it, we just ain't got it. It gives them an advantage. The disparity right now in the United States is there's a lack of houses. There are no houses. When I grew up, there was the Haley house, the Johnson house, the Davis house. There was a name for each house. Each man had a house. And the women were in a condition of the head of that house. Unfortunately, a lot of these men who were head of house passed away. So now you have women in houses and no man running them, no man running the house. Another thing about the men, they provide, they maintain order, things of this nature. They're not in that house. So now we have to find alternatives for provisions. Your day-to-day needs are now in the hands of ultimately some other man. So, and especially if this man is not your husband, he's not invested in that house. And so here in the United States, women are here fending for themselves. It's a very scary situation because we now, a lot of us, didn't have a dad we could pick his brain, didn't have a man who tell us what we need to know so that we can make better decisions. But at the same time, as women, as human beings, you want to be accepted and you want to be stable. You want to be wanted and you want to be needed. And then guys, they have that nature too. They have that human nature too, that need to be needed, things of that nature. But when you don't have a man that is providing structure, you just got a bunch of people who are just kind of figuring it out as they go, right? So, I guess, in conclusion, I understand I'm starting to get this whole women being in control thing, the feminist thing. I'm starting to get it. It's starting to make sense because we don't have to depend on men the way that we should. And at the same time, men are not as dependable as they should be. But we still got to live. We still got to figure it out. And then now, the idea of being a parent, you got women that's having kids on their own and they choosing it. Which I guess now we're trying to normalize instability. But it still doesn't change the fact that there has to be a house and the man will always be the head of the house. There is no getting away from this. There is no alternative. Because even let's say if a woman is the head of a house, ultimately some man somewhere is calling the shots there. That's just the order, right? So, yeah, that's my breakdown of houses and royalty. And my daughter is finally asleep, and I'm about to call it a night. See y'all on the next one.